Hi there, my name is Stijn and I'm a digital creator and social media manager from the Netherlands, and I ride a Yamaha T7.
Welcome to the Real Riders Podcast. My name's Simon Josie, and this is a podcast about motorcycling and filmmaking. If this is your first time here, welcome and thanks for listening. As you heard, my guest for today's episode is Stijn Vermeulen, who you might know from both Instagram and YouTube as BRAAPStijn. He's been in the digital content creation game for a while, but only in the last couple of years has he thrown himself full-time into creating motorcycle content. We'll get to my chat with Stijn shortly. Don't forget, you can find the Real Riders podcast on Instagram, where I post, amongst other things, trailers for each new episode. And if you want to know what I've been watching recently, I occasionally post about that on Bluesky. Links for both the Instagram and Bluesky accounts can be found in the show notes. Finally, if you want to help keep the servers running, pumping out the episodes, you can now support the podcast via Buy Me a Coffee donations. I have a few operational costs associated with hosting and remote recording infrastructure, and any donations go towards paying for those. The link is in the show notes and also in my link tree, which you can find in my Instagram, Bluesky, and YouTube account profiles. Righto, let's get to my talk with Stijn. Hi, Stijn. Welcome to the podcast. Thanks for joining me today. How are you?
Yeah, pretty good. I'm in Thailand right now, and it's blue skies and a little bit of sun, and the sun is about to set in like an hour or so can't complain.
Yeah, no, please don't complain because, as you know, I live in the western part of Germany, not so far away from where you normally live, and it's cold and wet. So you better be making the most of that Thailand weather. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
Yeah. So have you been doing any riding out there in Thailand?
Yeah, actually, well, by accident, we did the Mae Hong Son loop. It's a loop that starts in the north of Thailand at Chiang Mai, and you circle the mountains and you go up to, I think, 2,500 meters of altitude, hugging the border with Myanmar for, I think it's like 800 or 900 kilometers. And they call it the road of thousands of turns or something like that. I should have read up on this. But they have so many turns and turns and turns and turns and turns, and it's a heaven for tour operators, especially in this part of the season because it's dry and the tarmac is bloody smooth. And I didn't do it on a motorcycle. I did it on a 155cc scooter, like the locals do, a Honda Click, if you want to look that up. And with my girlfriend on the back and 30 liters of luggage, and then just sleeping here and there and every now and then. And just as we finished the loop, yeah, we decided to take it a bit easy, booked a nice little homestay with a pool at a villa, went to pick up my girlfriend from her massage, and then I crashed that, well, not that scooter, but I crashed a bigger scooter, 350cc, which I wasn't used to anymore. So took myself to the hospital and then spent the last 2 weeks or so recovering and making sure my foot closed up before I could finally dip into the Gulf of Thailand. But yeah, some riding, but not the way you would expect, I guess.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, actually, you did send me some photos of you sitting in the hospital, and I think my somewhat smarmy comment was, well, you're just making this easy for me. We can talk about your accident for the whole episode, but I promise we will not talk about the accident for the whole episode. You're okay now. That's the main thing.
That's all right. It's okay. Let it be a lesson for everybody else. Don't be that guy.
Yeah. Okay, so there's a whole lot of things I want to talk about, but maybe let's start with the motorcycling. How'd you get into motorcycling in the first place?
I guess the way a lot of men of my generation do, by watching two British blokes circumvent the globe. Yeah, I grew up watching Star Wars, and then when Star Wars finished, I think that's when they did that whole tour. I'm talking about Long Way Round, of course. It always kept resonating with me, like Maybe it's the ego, maybe it's something else. Like I'm meant for something epic and something big. And then fast forward 10 years later, some heartbreak involved. And then I was just like, damn it, I'm going to go get my motorcycle license right now and spend all of the money I had at that moment on a motorcycle, which I did at 30 years old. And then I got my first bike, which was a Kawasaki KLE 500 1993, pink and purple. Wouldn't start in winter, but yeah, the sense of freedom driving through Amsterdam on a hot summer day. Yeah, it can't be compared to like riding through forests in Sweden or gravel roads in Croatia or Gorafi Desert, but like blasting along the canals. At the time, you were still allowed to ride 50 kilometers in the city center, and now it's 30. But my speedometer didn't work anyway, so. But yeah, that gave me a true sense of freedom, and yeah, the city became much smaller. I could go to the beach quicker. I could have fun dates with the ladies. I could pick them up literally and figuratively on the back of the bike. So yeah, there was a lot of fun. But I soon realized that that bike had its shortcomings, and that's when I got a 1150 GS, just like the aforementioned Duo. And that's kind of when the curiosity for off-roading kind of came into light. And my dad and I, we do these castle trips every year. Well, we try to do it every year. We look for castles and World War One or World War Two memorabilia around the Ardennes, and there's so many places you can go just outside the Netherlands, in Belgium, in Germany, in northern France. And then there's this forest and tracks, and I got this bike, and I was like, okay, this is awesome. I want to do more off-roading. And I think that's when I got influenced for the second time properly. The first time was by the BMW boys, and the second time I got properly influenced was through Paul Torres and the Seeker. And you see him jump this gap, and I was like, I can do that. And then I bought the Tenere, and I hope by the time people are watching this, I can say, well, the rest is history.
What's the appeal of ADV riding over other forms of riding for you? What does it allow you to do, or what's so special about it for you?
Well, it's just the feeling of having everything with you on your bike and being completely dependent only on yourself. I mean, if you've ever traveled by yourself with a motorcycle or without a motorcycle, it teaches you something about being alone and being dependent on yourself. And then when you add in the factor of somewhat dangerous sport of off-road riding, and it gives me at least a sense of real freedom, the spirit of adventure. It's all those cliches, that are true to a point. Like when you're riding by yourself through a forest in Sweden and the sun is setting, and you're like, this seems like a good spot to camp. And you're like, okay, I'll just pitch my tent here because why not? And then you whip out the frozen foods and get a little fire going, and then you start looking around at everything that's making a noise in the forest at your very first night sleeping in Sweden, and you're like, oh, what did I get myself into? But then the next day you do it again and again and again, and you become more comfortable, and yeah, it's literally more adventurous. And there's the added bonus of like less traffic or no traffic laws, no traffic lights. The only rule is to not crash and to not leave crap behind. Leave the place where you slept and the road where you drive cleaner than the way you found it.
Seeing as you have the honour of being my first guest from the Netherlands, I have to
Yeah.
ask you, what's sort of the riding environment and the riding culture in the Netherlands like?
Well, I can only speak for, well, I can't speak for the off-road community, but my whole experience in the Netherlands is either urban city riding in the city center of Amsterdam, And there it's just either horrible, or if you accept the potential consequence of losing your license, riding in Amsterdam can be a lot of fun. I won't get into that. Uh, and the other side of riding in the Netherlands, I know, is off-road riding. And my first experience with that was the Trans-Euro Trail, which has a few sections in the Netherlands. But yeah, the most fun part, and it's the reason why I moved there half a year ago as well, is in the south of Holland, or in the south of the Netherlands, in the province of Brabant, which is also where a lot of like motocross and enduro and people that do the Dakar and on the big trophy trucks and everything, they all come from that same area. There's also military exercise grounds, which you're not supposed to ride in, but you can. It's a pretty long season. In the winter, we have events that are called off the roads, because at the end of the farming season, all the fields are empty, so they can be used to do some crosses and treks and stuff like that. And during the peak of summer, it's like everywhere in Europe, you have to share the road and the forest with people that are hiking or walking their dog or on a mountain bike or whatever. Yeah, but there's some riding there. It can be fun, it can be wet, it can be muddy, it can be cold, it can be sunny, it can be a bit of everything. The only thing it can't be is not flat. Everything is flat.
That was the whole point of my question. I just wanted you to get
Oh,
to just like
yeah,
it's flat. Just you don't need to
flat.
know anything else. It's just flat. I mean, I guess the good thing is now that you're in the south, you're not so far from Belgium, which a lot of Belgium's quite flat. But as you get into the south of Belgium, it's quite
Yeah,
spectacular in places. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about your creative work. So in your Instagram profile, you describe yourself as a digital creator. What does that term mean to you, and why did you choose to describe yourself that way as opposed to maybe using some other term, maybe something like photographer or filmmaker, whatever you could have chosen? Storyteller, I guess, could have been one. But what does digital creator mean to you?
Yeah, I always try to tweak my profile to best suit who I am or who I'm trying to be in that moment in time, which changes depending on the situation, I suppose, or depending on my experience and the skill set and things I learn over time. But when you go to that little drop down, you have things like I don't know, hairdresser or DJ, and none of those really fit. And I'm not only a videographer. I'm not really a photographer. I can take a few pictures, and I use my girlfriend's professional cameras to do those. And yeah, I like to do it all. I like to make videos. I like to make reels. I like to listen to songs and make weird combinations. And then I see stuff in my head that I'd want to get onto a screen. But it's always more difficult to get the vision inside my brain onto a screen so it can be shown to somebody else's brain. But yeah, I guess because I create everything that it's digital.
Is it getting easier to convert the image that is in your brain to something that you can show someone else compared to when you started out?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, the tools have gotten much better, but also my own skills have improved over time. It was only recently that I really started to script my own reels, to make shot lists. In the fall of last year, I went to France with ACT, and then we had a proper professional videographer and a second shooter, and he had his iPad and his laptop and all the gear you could think of. But the one thing that really stuck with me whilst I was on the other side of the camera, I had my little POV thingy on my face, of course, but he just had this complete shot list. He did the whole route a week in advance to check for any anomalies and fallen branches or whatever. And he just had this whole shot list on his laptop and in his head. Like, this is going to be the movie. This is how we're going to do it. This is how we're going to show the country of France. And sometimes we would need to ride back and forth to get that exact shot a few times, and it was bloody hot at times, and you couldn't take your helmet off because everything had to look the same. But sometimes it was like, all right, this shot was super easy. We got it in one go, on to the next one. And now I'm not doing that on that scale, but when I do my little social media reels or when I create content for one of my clients, I've learned that time is really precious. So the scripting really helps in managing that time and knowing how fast you can get things done. And it also gives you like confidence, like to move on to the next one. This is the shot we needed. Check it. Okay, we got it. Forget about it. Focus on the next one. Whereas in my earlier YouTube days, I came home with so much footage, and then like, where do you begin? It's just like it's too much, and it really helps if you begin with the message or begin with the ID, and then work from there. So yeah, things have gotten it has gotten easier to get my vision to create content from the vision I have in my brain or in my head. Because of that, because of skills I've developed, because of the people I know, because of other things I've seen, because of the equipment has improved, and also because you just have to accept that not everything can be super duper perfect, which is hard for me. And sometimes you just have to like just send it, both when uploading or when riding the bike.
Was this your first exposure to making film at all? What I mean by that is that, like, when you started the YouTube channel, I think like you first posted in November 2023, and the Instagram looks like it was established in early 2022. So, had you had any experience before those times of making video content?
Yeah, some when I was through my education, previous jobs I had. Like I've always been creating content. I used to work at a gym where I worked for I think 5 years. The gym in Amsterdam. Well, it's more like a boutique fitness lifestyle thing. 150 members, all paying a pretty steep fee for like dedicated nutrition advice and training. So they needed proper content, and I got to work with some professional film crews. And the gym was also very beautiful and well lit. So people would come there and do photo shoots and video shoots, and we would rent out the place. And I would always be there to like walk around and facilitate. And whenever I'd see one of those super dope steady cams, which you can hold from every angle, I'd always be like, "Wow, that's awesome!" Because I'd be doing everything with my phone or just a little gimbal. In my last 9 to 5, which was a co-working space with 5,000 people and offices in all shapes and sizes, it was one of my tasks to connect people in the community and have them like connect with each other. And to do that, I created a video series where I would interview the members or the people that would work there. And I would do that like from behind the camera, but with an actual cameraman with lighting and good quality audio and stuff like that. So I would always like learn from it. And then when I first started doing it myself, I was just like, okay, I can do this. We'll see where it ends up.
So the YouTube channel, as I said, was started or established in November 23. What was your initial motivation or inspiration for starting the channel?
I think it was pretty shallow, actually. I think it was just like, I think it was just money. Yeah, honestly, I think like I could be a YouTuber. Why not?
Hmm.
Because one of the cameramen that I used to work with at the 9 to 5, he was also a cameraman for some really big influencers in Amsterdam, like millions of followers on YouTube and stuff like that. So I was always really close to the fire, I would say. So I figured I can do that. And then you realize it's a lot more work, especially if you do everything yourself. And it also was just to do something for myself. I've always been at the gym and at the previous job and before that time, it was always like you're writing somebody else's book. You're not even writing it. You're like an appendix in somebody else's book. And I was like, no, I want to write my own book. I want to tell my own story. And I didn't even know what that story was at the time, but I figured I would make it me and make it funny and make it honest and make it raw and make it authentic and show my failures. And when I look back at the content I made when I did my first 5,000 kilometer road trip around the Baltic Sea, there's this one sequence and my parents' neighbor who I run into from time to time when I'm at my folks' place, who have a bigger place where I can wrench and stuff. He always pops out and he's like, "Your writing has really improved," because he keeps watching the stuff I make on his big screen. And there's this one incident or a sequence in Sweden where I'm writing and I'm talking to the viewer like, "All right, I'm gonna drop some knowledge now," and there's this tiny little puddle in hindsight, tiny little puddle, and I break for the puddle and I tell to the viewer, my maybe 500 subscribers at the time, like, yeah, you should always break for puddles because you never know what's in them and blah, blah. And now when I see a puddle like 20 times that size, I just pop the front wheel and boom, I go through it. And it's so funny to see that change of perspective in such a relatively short period of time. I forgot what the question was, but
The question was the motivation and the inspiration for starting the YouTube channel in the first place.
yeah, yeah,
That was the
exactly.
question, which you did actually answer. So,
Yeah.
but then I wanted to go on and ask, was there a particular format or other YouTuber or YouTubers that you were trying to emulate, trying to copy?
Yeah, all of them. Like all of them. Like the OG YouTuber to me is Casey Neistat.
Okay.
Like his daily vlogs of his life in New York and the way he gets the shot and his interactions and his speed of editing and shot is like really captivates me. And then around the same time I started my YouTube channel, Martijn Dolaert stopped cycling and he during COVID, I think, he got a cabin, old stone cabin in the hills of Italy, just above I think Turin. And his content is super slow, and he doesn't speak too much. You see him like doing yard work and like wood craftsmanship, and he builds a chicken coop and super slow. And on the other side, it's like super fast. And if you look at my first videos, there's a little bit of both in there. Like in my drone sequences, I try to like zoom out and slow down, and there's nice music. And then when I make coffee, there's some ASMR sequences in there. When I get dressed, it's like yeah, just everything that I think is fun and interesting to make. If I like making it, that's the whole I don't know raison d'être behind what I do. Is if I like making it, I think the people that I show it to will see that I like making it, and for that reason, they will like to watch it.
Hmm.
And if you don't like to watch what I make, then that's fine. Then you're not for me. Then you're not my audience. Then you go watch something else. That's totally fine. But that is a lesson I've had to learn, I guess.
Yeah. Talking about those two sort of extremes of style,
Mm,
it's something that I completely recognize because at one stage I thought every video that I watched had to have some voiceover, someone talking. And I thought, oh, this is the answer. This is what makes a video really good. And then I watched a film that had no voiceover and I loved it. And I realized that, yeah, I can like different things at different times. I don't need to, everything doesn't
yeah.
need to be the same for me still to enjoy it. And and I really like what you say about prioritizing making things that you enjoy making. And I think you're 100% right about you will find your audience because they will recognize that authenticity of you clearly enjoying what you're making, and you can't fake that.
Yeah, but sometimes it's hard, you see somebody else, and there's always this measuring yourself against others who are literally on a different trajectory or on a different timeline, and you're like, how the hell have they gotten this many views, likes, whatever? And their stuff it's not better. It really isn't. And then I look at some of my videos and like, fuck, how is this possible? But then you realize, like, yeah, who cares? I like what I'm doing. I've been doing it for 3 years now. That's all that matters. But
Mm.
in this digital age, it's sometimes difficult to not get sucked into the comparison.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I think we all have to try and find our happy place and really figure out why we're doing what we're doing, whether it's making podcasts or making reels for Instagram or YouTube videos. Um, what would you tell someone who's starting out today in terms of if they were starting to make moto films, moto content, whether it's on Instagram or YouTube or wherever, what would you tell them?
Yeah, it's also such a terrible cliche, but it's just to make what you like to make, to do what you like to do. Because otherwise, if you don't appreciate the journey towards it, you're not gonna appreciate the reward, I guess.
Hmm.
Like when you invited me for this podcast, I was like, what am I gonna tell? Who's gonna listen to me? But then it was also a bit like, okay, this is pretty cool. I have some things to say. I've experienced a few things over the past 3 years. There's some lessons to be learned here. Yeah, it's pretty cool to be invited to this podcast and showed it to my girlfriend. It's like, hey, Greg has been on it, and Julie and Thomas and Runa and all these people whose content I consume and learn from. But yeah, I would say stick to what you think is if you think it's funny, then do it. If you think it's cool, do it. If you think it's nice to do it like that, do it the way you want to do it. Don't listen to everybody else because nobody knows what the hell they're doing, and it doesn't really matter at the end of the road.
Hmm.
And get a smaller bike. That's
Get
that's
us.
the one that's the one advice I would give. It's not really a YouTube advice or a content creating advice, but nowadays I get messages from people that I used to know before I became a hotshot influencer, BRAAPStijn, uh, from before, and they message me like, "Hey, I'm looking at to getting my license, or I want to buy this bike, or whatever." And the one advice I always give when they want to go into off-roading is to get a smaller, lighter bike that you don't care so much about dropping because you're gonna drop it a lot. And the first time I dropped my 12,000 euro tenner, I was like, oh no, I was like heartbroken. But now it's like, it's fine. It's built for that. It's
Yeah.
totally fine. But it's a lot easier if you start out on a smaller bike.
Years ago, I did a tour around, I think it was northern Laos, and
Oh,
turned up for the first day. And at that stage, I'd had my motorcycle license for years. I hadn't ridden recently, but the last bike I'd had was a 550 road bike, which was sort of a nice middleweight bike. And I thought, oh, because I'd seen the long way round as well. I thought, okay, well, surely they're going to have these massive big BMWs for us. And turn up, and they've got these, I think it was some sort of Honda 250 dirt bike, and I was just like
yeah.
devastated. I thought, oh, where's my big fancy BMW? And of course, within half an hour, I greatly appreciated the fact that I was on this relatively small, light bike, and it was perfect for what we were doing. Um,
Hmm.
and then the following year, we actually did a northern Thailand trip. I wonder if we did the same route that you talked about earlier. Sorry, it's so long ago, I can't remember exactly where it was.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, light is right. That's what everyone says, right? And yeah, I look at my bike, which is this big, 1250 road bike, and even I look at that and go, yeah, it's almost a bit too big for me now. I'm getting
Yeah,
on a
yeah,
little bit, and I see the appeal of smaller, lighter
yeah,
bikes for sure, for sure.
yeah. I do like a big bike though. Just the appeal. It's like
Yeah.
when I was at Hex Bank. a year ago for their event. Uh, by the way, Mr. Hack, if you're listening to this, I still owe you money. Reply to my email. When I was there was all these little guys, or they're not little guys, like big British blokes on little like KTM 350, 450, Honda 250, the CRFs and everything. And they split us up into two groups. And the other group was the bigger, the F900s, the 10R8s, maybe a 2RX, like bigger two-cylinder 700s. And the first group left, and I thought, okay, those look pretty cool. But then the second group left, and it's like, whoa, that's awesome. It's like the riders of Rohan, like the big bulky. But it's just like, yeah, it just does something more to me, at least.
Are you a tech head? In other words, do you get excited by developments in action film cameras or other developments that help people make better videos, better Instagram reels? Is that something that you're really interested in?
Yes and no. I used to be that guy who needed to have the newest iPhone and newest MacBook and the newest AirPods, but I realized, like, especially with the type of riding and the demands I have from my gear, it's like, yeah, I don't need to upgrade it all the time. My setup is quite simple. I try to keep it simple, try to keep it compact. And only recently that I've been like doing more client work, I realized, okay, I need a little bit more of this. I need some more stabilization or light or whatever. But the stuff you need to bring around you, it just becomes more and more, and everything you need to charge. And uh, but yeah, I like tech. If I had infinite funds, I would like get the best camera every year. But I also like tires on my bike, so
Yeah, yeah. You got to strike the right balance there. How did you hear about the Tilta Hydra Alien Mini? So I wanted to ask you about this because I really liked the little Instagram reel that you made about how you mount that and how you use it on the back of your bike. So how'd you hear about that?
probably just Instagram, I guess.
Hmm.
Well, you asked me if I'm a tech head, and I replied like, oh, maybe not, but I guess I am because my whole Instagram feed or my explore page is filled with these kind of things, like little gimbals or the tiny hovering drones or new smaller microphones and stuff like that. And that's how I also saw the Tilta Hydra Alien Mini. It's a mouthful. So I reached out to them, sent them a message, told them what I do, and like, hey, I want to use your thing, but put it on my motorcycle, which nobody has done yet, I believe. I've seen a lot of people putting it on the back of a car, but the downside of riding behind a car is you cannot really look past the car, especially in off-road sequences. You need a big 4x4, and yeah, it's just more agile on a bike. And the shots I get with that thing, it takes some adjusting, it's just some fidgeting, but once you get that proper hero shot and with the motion blur, it's like it's so cool.
Yeah, it's because that's the thing. So for people, if you don't know what we're talking about a little sort of a gimbal mount that is mounted on the back of Stijn's motorcycle, and it holds a Osmo Pocket, DJI
Yeah,
Osmo Pocket. And of course, what it allows you to do is to get really close to other bikes riding
yeah,
along. And I think this is the thing that you don't often see when people first start making videos is they take a point of view shot, or they may put a camera on a tripod and ride past. But actually, one of the most engaging kind of shots that I think you can get is actually watching someone else ride really close, not necessarily from behind, but maybe from just in front or just to the side. Particularly just from
yeah.
the
Just to
side
the
looks
side is awesome.
it looks so
Yeah,
good, doesn't it? And
yeah,
and I think that's why when you first did that, posted that content, you got all those comments like, hey, how'd you
hmm,
do this? What equipment did you
yeah,
use? How'd you do this? And then that prompted you to make that video. But
yeah,
that's why sort of jumped on it as well because I thought, yeah, you've hit the magic juice there, which is to get in close to watch someone riding. And you go and look at all the big professionally shot videos of motorcyclists riding, the ones where they've got a massive budget, and you see those kind of shots and you go, that's where the money is. People have got stabilized cameras close to someone else riding, and it looks so good.
Yeah. And you know how they get it on those big budgets? They use the same little camera. Well, they also have like proper DSLRs and on a really big gimbal, but you don't always want to attach that to the back of your truck. So they use a similar setup, but it's on a car.
Yeah.
And I've also been the subject being filmed behind a big Mercedes Jeep and another Jeep. But it's really tricky. You want to get in close and you want to like read the road and see, like, oh, there's a little bump here. I can pop a little wheelie, and you can't read the road because there's a big car. So yeah, it's really nice with the little gimbal because it really allows the rider behind me to get up close. I can monitor what's being filmed on my phone, which I have on my handlebar with the SP Connect. Little name dropping here and there, and then I stay in touch with the rider behind me through our headsets. So I can just like, okay, pop a little closer, or the DJI has lost the tracking, which happens still because it's still a bumpy road and there's ND filters and yeah.
So to date, there are 69 videos and just over 20 shorts on the YouTube channel, and it's sort of a mix of content, sort of a few tech reviews and a lot of tour videos. What type of video do you enjoy making the most?
When I look back at all the things I've made, it's the one where I'm just by myself in the forests, or that's the ones I look back to with the most fondness. But it's been a while since I've done that because bills have to be paid, so that's why I started creating other types of content.
In terms of your trips, your tours, what's been your favorite trip? And has that also been your favorite trip to create the film or the series of films from?
Yeah, I think my favorite trip was going through the UK, taking the ferry from close to Amsterdam to Newcastle, finding out that riding laws, green laning in England is pretty similar to the Netherlands, where you connect a little bit of off-road through too much tarmac to a little bit more off-road until you cross the border into Scotland. And there's like miles and miles and miles and miles and miles of like never ending, like a ski slope that just never ends. That's, yeah. But yeah, I guess that's my favorite trip. Also because I was with one mate and we got stuck and he had to go to the hospital. We had to get stitches. We got laughed at by all the locals with our big T7s, and then we decided, okay, screw this. We're gonna leave England and go to Scotland. And a guy in England actually shared some of his GPX routes with us, and we went to Scotland, and it was just like everything you've been hoping for at the end of the season, deep into October. The colors of the fall in Scotland are just amazing, and then the light already was quite low. And at the time, I was a much more confident rider on much more knobbly tires with proper suspension. So that was a really great trip. But as for the production I'm most fond of that I've done, I guess it's the first Tenere travel trophy.
Okay.
Like that's where I really like got stuck in and spent way too much time on a in essence unpaid gig. But I was editing 6 or 7 episodes for 8 weeks straight. And when I look at that, it reminds me of I am able to pump out consistent, solid content if I really have to. Yeah.
Are you doing that event? I presume there's a Tenere Trophy event this year. Are you planning to do that?
Yeah, I would, but they sold out in one day.
Wow.
Yeah. like last year, the trip went to Sweden and Norway, and it was a fantastically organized event. And one of your other guests, Stefan, did the after movie, which was really awesome, really cinematic, and kind of like spied on him a little bit to see how he was doing stuff. But the downside for me, if you're going to Sweden and Norway, such a vast country, so beautiful, so dark, so awesome to be alone, and then you do that with 149 other men. It kind of defeats the purpose a little bit of going to such a spectacular place, which is massive drop. It's awesome to ride in such a group, but it's not a rally. It's just like go from A to B. But it's when I was in Sweden, I was like, I'm just here by myself with my little campfire, and I'm grilling a piece of meat, and I have 2 beers in the water, which are getting cold, and then I'm gonna sleep here by myself and make oats in the morning. And I think that's a more authentic Scandinavian moto trip experience as opposed to riding it with 150 other people. Yeah, it benefits and drawbacks, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that totally makes sense. Just in terms of the YouTubing and the Instagram posting, do you have concerns that at any time you just might be repeating yourself? You know, what strategies do you use to avoid just generating the same old content?
None really. I just go by feeling, I guess. Like that's also what I say to all like the people that request a collab or that send me products or whatever. Like I always say, like you can send it to me if I like it, I will use it, and if I feel inspired or it fits into my narrative or I can use it in some way to show it to my audience in a way that it's not like ta-da, then I will do it. I want it to be organic and authentic and not too much of a too much of a commercial. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, not too much of the hard sell, push, push, push. I mean, I
Yeah.
can smell it. There are some people who I don't necessarily follow, but who just get pushed to me constantly on
Mm,
Instagram, and they just swing all over the place. One minute they're pushing this, the next minute they're pushing something else, and they just, I mean, it almost sounds like AI slop to me because it just doesn't
mm,
seem authentic. So yeah,
yeah.
I completely know what you mean.
Like for example, I have a bunch of discount codes I think on the link in my bio, but either it's just too much hassle or the reward is not enough, or I just don't feel comfortable. Like if somebody asks, I will happily give it to you, or but it's like all those stories with go to this shop, go to this link, blah blah blah. People just want a little bit of entertainment. Is just more fun.
Mm. Um, so as we record this, you're about 2/3 of the way through a 60-day social media sabbatical or pause. What prompted you to take a break?
More like who?
Okay.
That's the girlfriend who is always nah. It's not always like that, but ever since I quit my 9 to 5 3 years ago, I've been doing this thing pretty much nonstop. Like either creating content for myself, creating content for my clients, creating content for my girlfriend, pretty much nonstop because I really like I really like doing it. So I'm always thinking of like, oh, I could film it like this or this idea or and it's just sometimes it's too much and you need a little bit of distance and my girlfriend's a photographer and when we were talking about doing this 2 month trip, we were like, do we bring the cameras? What do we bring? Because it's if you're on these Thai beaches and there's monkeys and everything, it's super easy to go viral with on TikTok or whatever. But that's not our our core business. So all we brought is a old analog camera
Mm-hmm.
and the phones, and that's it. And then, so we made the decision to not bring the laptops, not bring the cameras, not bring the video stuff. And then we were like, okay, so what are we going to do there? Because if we don't bring all the work stuff, we can't work. And then we decided to not work. To all my clients, I said, January is offline, just completely offline. Didn't really succeed at that, but the intention was there. And like, if you're on in these hills in Thailand and you're riding and you're on the beach and you just see so many people in these beautiful places and they're still on their screen. And I spent so much time on my screen, like at home, and I just wanted to like detox a little bit.
Mm.
But it was also a hard thing to do because like my Instagram finally got the momentum and traction I feel I rightfully deserve because my stuff is awesome. And I finally like got from August into November, December. I finally got to like a steady 1 million views a month, 1.5 at points even, and yeah, just like proper engagement, a lot of DMs, and things really started flowing. I was like, oh, and to put it down at that moment is like it was tricky. And that's when I decided to just schedule a bunch of content and tell people the story till now, because it's fun to scroll back in time. Yeah,
Will you be changing your approach to anything once the 60-day ban or the break ends?
yeah. I really want to like put more focus on the quality, because I've noticed over the last few months where the the content that I make that has some real attention to detail and some sound management and like nice transitions, and it's all in 4K. Those really, yeah, you get like these evergreen pieces of content. And that's one of the lessons I learned from one of my earliest mentors at the gym, was to like always ask yourself with the content you're making, like, how does this give value? So that's what I want to do more, like give value to my content. And I don't want to sound all like I know everything, or that I know everything that's right or how it should be done, because I'm still learning every day by writing with much better writers than I am, and much better content creators, and much better cameraman. But yeah, just to make content that is worth watching. That's, I think, what I want to try to make.
I just want to ask you a few questions about being a social media manager. So, what does that actually entail? What do you do as a social media manager?
Yeah, you just look after the online presence of a brand to make sure that the brand's output and that it's consistent, that it aligns with their brand guidelines. And wow, I could go really deep into this, but basically, what I do is I try to tell the story for my clients through content that resonates with their audience. And sometimes it's difficult to take off my yellow BRAAPStijn hat and put on a different hat. And I've also realized that sometimes it's okay to mix that, because the brands I work with me because they like the way I do things and they like my tone of voice. But the liberties I give myself on my own channel, you know, dropping bikes or swearing or whatever, some things you cannot do for client work. It has to be a bit less rough around the edges. But yeah, it really depends on the client, I suppose.
What's been the most challenging part of working as a social media manager?
To keep doing it when you lose interest.
Okay.
But ever since I've started working in the motorcycle industry, I have not really lost interest, because the brands I work with keep teaching me stuff about the technicalities of wheel building or route making, or yeah. So the most challenging has been, I guess, to keep doing it consistently. I
Mm.
think that's one of my personal drawbacks, because I'm like an idea machine. I have idea after idea after idea after idea, and then I create a concept, and then it's time to actually make that concept, build the concept, shoot the concept, make the piece of content, and that's not that's not what I'm the best at. But I have so many creative ideas all the time, so it's easy to get distracted when I'm shooting A. My mind is already going, oh, we could do B, we could do C, and we could do D, and then I lose interest in project A, and then I want to move on to B. But while we're at B, I already see E and F, and then it just goes on and on and on and on. And at the start of my working day, I always write down three things, like, what is it I absolutely want to do today? Or what do I absolutely need to do today? Like the most necessary thing. And then that's the first thing I try to do on those days.
Mm.
And don't try to get distracted with all the other things that could be done. There's a garage full of hardware, or a new exhaust, or a new windscreen, or I want to mount these new lights, or try this new frame rate, or oh, the sun is nice out, maybe get some shots going. uh, or you get a text like, hey, I'm out riding, you want to join? Fuck. But that's also the benefit of freelancing, because if it's possible to ride on a like a surprisingly sunny day in March, and the next 3 days is like, oh, it's gonna rain, you're gonna go ride, and then the editing can wait.
Yeah, it's exactly what I tell myself as well. Does social media in the motorcycling world have special characteristics or maybe special requirements? Anything that you've noticed?
Well, there's a safety element involved, because motorcycles can kill you if you're a gym or food or fitness or whatever influencer.
Mm.
You can get killed by a barbell or whatever. But I guess that's different. But I wouldn't know. I can't really speak for other niches. But
Mm. Do you feel pressured to keep on top of trends in social media? Because like my son works for a film a film production house, and he was I don't think he's working as a social media manager now, but he was doing that, and he said a lot of his time was spent just trying to figure out what was working, what was popular, like on things like TikTok and Instagram, not so much YouTube. So he was having to really do quite a bit of research to understand what was working in social media. Is that something that you find you have to do as well?
well, not obsessively. I think I try to do it, but I try to do it in my way, and I try to do it organically. Like, I'm not looking at like trending sounds, or trending visuals, or formats or whatever. But I also consume content, and sometimes I have an idea and I'm able to execute it immediately, and it works. Like, for example, a while ago there was this trend going on about the Australia effect, about people moving from Western Europe, where it's always cold, going to Australia, and they have this glow up where they grow a mustache and a mullet, and they get tanned and fit, and they start working out. And I was like, okay, that's fun. I'm gonna do the Tenere effect, and it's me where I get my bike and me smiling in the forest and being way too hot and being way too tired. And that was just like, there's a trend, I can swing it in a way where it works for me. And then I had all the footage. I was able to combine it quickly, slap the song under it, and that went. I think it's on 300,000 or 400,000 views now. So that's pretty cool. And sometimes you swing, and sometimes you miss.
Mm.
Another example I did. where I thought, oh, this could be funny, but the execution was lacking and it was a bit too quick. A while ago, Instagram was pushing videos that were like super wide horizontal, like 5,000 pixels, and then only 1,000 in width, where they would only
Yeah.
use like 10% of your screen or something like that. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this trend, but pretend I misunderstand it. So I took one of my goggles and I put duct tape on it and pretended that was how I saw the world, like kind of like RoboCop. And that one like struck out completely. The idea was fine, but the execution was shit. Some people got it, but yeah. So sometimes you hop on a trend, but I always try to do it in a way that works with my brand, with my audience or what I think is funny or what works. So not hopping on the trend for the sake of hopping on the trend,
Right.
because there's a new one every day, and I got shit to do. It's too much.
Yeah. How do you like? I'm thinking more not so much about your personal work, but I'm thinking more about the like the clients that you work for. How do you measure success working as a social media manager? Is it easy to measure or to track your success, or is it something that you're constantly challenged by the difficulty to show that your work is having a measurable impact? When you either approach a prospective client or when you're talking with your existing clients, are you
Hmm.
looking together about how what you're doing is having a measurable impact?
One of my clients is Han Wheels, and they make wheels. They build the best wheels in the business, and with them, they did not do any promotional or marketing activities towards the ADV market. They are huge in motocross and supercross, and every world champion, Romain Fevre, Kai de Wolf, everybody rides with Han wheels. But now they want to transition into the ADV market because there's more ADV bikes than ever doing crazy shit, going to Romaniacs, going through Hard Alpi, going whatever. And yeah, it can be coincidence, but through my efforts, we've sold significantly more wheels for the Tenerate, for example. And yeah, but for some sales, I can say like that's me. For other sales, it can be like maybe somebody was already familiar with the brand and they just saw another piece of content that was like, okay, I'm gonna make that purchase. So yeah, you sit down, you talk KPIs, you talk return on investment, you talk about like what's a realistic target for growth over the next couple of or over the next year or for the time you want to pitch your project. And sometimes it's a matter of trust, I suppose.
Hmm.
Like trust the process and realize that the effects will not be measurable within months, but sometimes can take years to, or well, can take up to a year to get a steady influx of the return on your investment.
Okay, we're on the home straight, so I just want to ask a couple of final questions. With regards to your own filmmaking, who have you taken inspiration from, or who would you recommend others to watch?
Well, the aforementioned Casey Neistat, like his work from, I don't know, 2015, 2016, like when he was doing daily vlogs, like it's a real testament on consistency, creativity, like challenging yourself to do something, to share a story every day. Yeah, that was really cool. Um, when it comes to YouTube, I also, yeah, Martijn Dolaert, the Dutch YouTuber. He's cycled everywhere, and now he's slow building. But I think 3 years ago I watched much more content, and now I'm reading a lot more because I want to get away from the screen. Yeah, I like Adam Rieman's
Okay.
content because he knows what he's talking about. He does show and tell. which is really cool. And I feel like the way he does things, and maybe it's the Australian accent, but the way he does things, it's always honest. Um, and I like I'm not really sure I pronounced this correctly, but the guy at Break Magazine.
Llewellyn Pavey, yeah.
Yeah,
Or
exactly.
Lau, yeah.
Yeah, Lau. So the way he sits down and talks to you and goes deep, he does technical things, but he's also talking about like the balance and the spirit of adventure. And of course, Ryan at Fort 9, the cinematography and the way he gets his points across by the shots he makes.
Okay, final question. Does the filmmaking enhance or diminish the pleasure of a motorcycle ride for you?
For me, it enhances it, but you have to find a balance. You have to do both. There's moments where, when there's this magical sunset and you're with one of your riding buddies and you're completely in the moment and you got some music going or whatever, then there's always this dialogue within yourself like, okay, I'm gonna stop this flow we're in to pop out the drone or adjust the mic or adjust the ND filter, or am I gonna be like, nah, fuck it, I'm just gonna enjoy this right now. And if you find a balance between those things, I think that's when you can do both. So for me, because I really like making videos, I really like motorcycle riding. That's why I started doing this. For me, it combines two of my passions into a livelihood. So for me, it enhances the the joy of riding on a bike because sometimes I get to relive the moment. But if I am practicing skills and drills or if I'm testing out new things, that's when I leave the camera, when I try to leave the camera. And since I moved to the south of the Netherlands, that has become much more easier because now I have dirt tracks in my backyard. So sometimes I just go out for a ride and try to do things to become a better rider instead of a better creator.
Thanks so much for being my guest for this episode, Stijn. Now's your chance to tell everyone where they can find and follow you online or maybe even in the real world.
Well, online is pretty easy. The sound my bikes make is Braap, and my name is Stijn. So if you hit up BRAAPStijn on Instagram, you can find me there. I'll also be at ABR, probably at Romaniacs, and two Dutch events called Get Off the Road and the first edition of the Dutch Adventure Ride Experience, or DARE, with a host of brands, including my own.
Great. Thanks again for being here today. Take care and ride safe.
You too.